So let's talk about something I've talked about a lot, but is what we call signaling risk, which is so in particular around large VCs investing in seed companies. So one of the responses that the larger VCs have had to this kind of seed fund movement or whatever, if you will, is to sort of replicate that within their own funds and sort of write, let's say, 100 grand checks or something in these early stage companies. I've written about this as like a risk because what happens is if the big VC doesn't follow on, it makes it harder for the entrepreneur to raise the next round because everyone else is sort of like, why, if this really smart top tier VC who's had the inside track is passing, there must be something wrong with it, right? So you sort of look like damaged goods. This is, I feel like it's debated out there in the public as if it's like a theory people like you and I have, when in fact,
it's true.
I see it like weekly. I get an email from an entrepreneur saying, "Oh God, how the heck are we going to raise money now that this happened?" I mean, it's like empirically, it's like this is an empirical observation, not
right.
So, like, what's your experience with that? And I think you have a few war stories there, right?
I do. I'd take a step back from that first and say that my advice to entrepreneurs, whether they're seeking money from myself or anybody else, is choose your investors wisely. Understand their motivations. Understand what they.
And one of the problems right now with the sort of frothy market is that it's not the prices that trouble me as much as how quickly things happen. So in other words, people are deciding on their investors in 2 days and not getting to know them, which I think, and vice versa, which I think is a little bit scary.
Yeah, it's like being a blind pool going in, right? You're both sides are blind, and so to me, the smarter entrepreneurs spend time understanding who's investing and what their motivations are and what their personal track records are with helping companies. And the reality is I think that's why there's people like myself and you and Mike Maples and Josh Koppelman, and the list goes on and on of people who have decided to get into this market, and those that have been in the market for a while, like Ron Conway and others, who have been proven to help people and entrepreneurs build their companies. Now, when you take my personal observation has been that when you're a large-scale venture capitalist and you have $500 million or more under management in every given fund, you can't reasonably spend time doing seed. If you're going to write a $500,000 check against a $700 million fund, there's just by definition you're not going to spend time on it, and so that, in my own opinion, creates its own problem because you have entrepreneurs who are looking for help. You probably let them invest because they were expecting help and then didn't get any. And then the worst part about that is I do have a half a dozen cases where we've syndicated with larger scale venture capitalists, and some have actually been honest, like, hey, I'm buying an option on the future. I don't want to be come to meetings. I will answer phone calls, I will be there, but if you call me, but otherwise, I'm going to just keep an eye on this. And I don't know that is if that's what the entrepreneur wants, that's one thing.
As long as they go into it knowing what they're getting, which is the person's buying an option and they're not,
Exactly. I mean, that.
And there's going to be some risk. If you're Instagram and you have 20 million users, you'll be able to raise a follow-on. If you're in the sort of the top 10%, and if you're in the bottom 10%, maybe you shouldn't raise money. But in a lot of cases in between, the dynamics of like who's invested and are they re-upping, all these other kinds of things end up actually having
really
a significant impact on the financings.
Yeah, I mean, like Instagram, we had a mainline VC in there, and they did not go forward with the company, and that didn't matter because Kevin had we had more term sheets to decide from than.
But had he not had that amazing, if he had much more, if he had like sort of more normal traction,
it could have been a bigger issue, right? But I can think of plenty of other companies that aren't the top 10% where the question does get asked, like, well, wait a minute, why isn't that big fund investing? And it can become a real issue. And I think you and I were talking before the show that you've got a mail from an entrepreneur today that had the same issue, which we can get into later if you want. But I think it's something, again, eyes wide open for entrepreneurs. The signaling issue is real, and it's something to consider as you're thinking about assembling your seed syndicate. And more importantly, my advice always is think about the motivations of the people that are coming in. How helpful will they be? How much help do you want? What are you looking for? Then size your investment from them appropriately, assuming you have the options. I mean, sometimes you don't have options.
Yeah, I mean, so we're talking about the people that have the luxury of choosing. If sometimes you just have to take what you get.